This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
I'm going to call to order the Public Safety Building Committee meeting today, March 18th. It's currently about 4:36, and this meeting is recorded. We'll start off with the open time for the public. I see nobody's here for the public. And we'll review the minutes next. From March 11th, I do notice that Barry Searle and Mark Darnold are not here yet. We'll just continue until they get here. Everybody get a chance to read the minutes? I will state that it was noted earlier prior to the recording that Ed Gibson's listed as members present, and it should be Scott Zabek, and that the city will correct that.
The only thing I noticed is a small typo under 0 College Highway, first large paragraph, third line down. Final worded needed. I think it's wording needed.
Thank you.
Other than that, I thought they were fine.
Anybody else see anything that does not seem to be corrected or need to be corrected? All right. Anyone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion?
Is there a second?
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you, Cindy.
Okay, the next agenda item is to finalize the facts page. Frequently asked questions page. Thank you, Cindy, for putting this together.
Okay. I have, I think, one that I updated. I can pass this out.
March 11th or?
Yeah.
That's the 11th.
Is that say 11th on it?
Yeah.
I don't think it's been changed since then, so if you need a copy.
I could use a copy.
All right, great. Yeah.
I'll need
And
a copy.
Charlie, can you pass these? You, and one's on Chris.
I have one from the 11th.
I mean, Christina.
I could use one.
You can use one. Oh my gosh.
I'm good either way.
They're killing trees in this business today. Go.
Thank you.
Anybody else? You guys?
And I think the best way to do this is let's just go question by question. We'll start with question number 1. And we'll discuss that and see if everyone's content with that and the answer and so forth. So the first question is, why do we need a public safety building? There's something that I noted in there myself that I wanted to, I think should be removed. And it's the third sentence where it says offices are crammed and located on 2 floors without an elevator. I don't think that crammed is a proper word, because we don't really have crammed offices, in particular at the police department. I would say something it's more so their layout. Are not appropriately laid out for police department function. What do you need?
I need the first page. I
Oh,
got
I'm sorry.
two second
Oh.
pages.
Sorry about that.
That's okay, Cindy.
There we
Thanks.
go. Anybody else? Okay. Function. Are the dates right on all that?
For the fire department, you know, it was converted to a firehouse 1948. But the rehab, it wasn't rehabbed, it was just added on.
Okay,
The 2 in bays in the office area.
okay.
And then the trailers, basically sleeping quarters and storage. There's no real office in there.
Oh, okay. So sleeping quarters and storage are located in the trailer. Okay?
Just last sentence, the working conditions, I would probably just say that it's difficult to recruit and retain rather than undesirable for hiring qualified professionals, because you do have qualified professionals already.
What's that?
You do have qualified professionals already.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
Well,
No,
do we-
so what did you say? Recruit and maintain?
it makes it difficult to recruit and retain personnel.
Oh, yeah. Makes.
And do we, my question was gonna be, do we wanna say that last couple words in that sentence? Create significant liability? Is that something we should? Could create?
And you're saying and could create?
Well, I don't know, I'm wondering if we should mention that at all, or if that opens up a can of worms that we might.
The liability thing?
I don't know,
I'd strike that.
wondering.
Strike it? Oh, we have a new member of the public now? I just noticed Stephen came in. Okay, sorry.
So I think it would be more for OSHA, you know,
How should we say it?
I don't know. I'm just wondering if this, does it strike anybody as something we should advertise or not? Or say it maybe a little bit.
Or just drop it off?
You know, I do think it's factual.
Yeah,
It could
it is.
create, you know, the word could
Yes.
create.
Could.
Could create, I mean, I do think
Yeah.
that's factual.
So maybe just add the word could.
But Charlie, what's your concerns?
My concern is you're opening up a question. Why open that question? It's self-evident that there's a liability issue with danger in the buildings, as they are. But why? I want a committee that's moving forward to build the new complex, not get into deeper minutia, and I think that's what this would create.
Well, maybe if we say, and could create liability, take off significant, just, and could create liability for Southampton? Does that soften it a little
It's a little
bit?
bit better, yeah.
We are trying to persuade residents that it's an
I understand the
absolute
goal.
necessity.
Is it too persuasive?
But I also watch when you say something, how people will grasp a letter of a word and run with it and forget about what the topic was about.
Yeah, I think could create is probably at least a little bit softer, because it's,
So
we don't want to, I don't think we want to unnecessarily draw attention to some outside person, entity, coming in to all of a sudden cause us issues here. So I think, you know, I think could create is probably fine.
I don't know if Stephen wants a copy of this too.
We're just going to be reviewing the public
Yeah.
engagement strategy today.
Okay, so the last sentence now says, the working conditions in both buildings make it difficult to recruit and maintain qualified professionals and could create liability for Southampton. Is that okay?
Retain. Is that-
I'm not maintain, I knew that was retain.
Difficult
Thank you. Recruit and maintain. Is that-
And
Retain.
retain.
Retain,
Yeah.
Yeah.
thanks.
And Ian, I think it's in the later one, but you've often talked about the ADA compliance issue. Did you want to mention anything?
That's
in that
number
first one, or
3.
is that
I
too
think,
much?
yeah, I think it's in number 3.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that would be enough.
yeah. I mean, it's a long answer to that question. I don't know how much we want to do.
Well, that's the longest one.
Right.
And that's the biggest one,
Yep.
in my opinion. Why are we doing this? Are we missing any important points that we want to make?
Now, let's go through them all and see where we are. We need to get this one
Okay.
tidied up.
Are we all good with number 1 right now? Is that where it is? All right. Number 2, can't the current police and fire departments be renovated? Any discussion on that?
Maybe it should say regulatory standards, not regulation standards.
You might want to strike the first sentence.
Why?
Can the current police and fire departments be renovated? They fail regulatory standards, are far too small, lack adequate parking, and would require enormous gutting and renovations that cost. Sounds good. But you're repeating yourself, saying current police and fire department buildings are in disrepair, lack appropriate security, and it's almost like it's a repeated statement in my mind.
Could we say it'd be more cost effective to,
That's a better verbiage.
build new rather than to try to
Yeah.
fix it?
My only concern was saying cost effective, which you're right, but we never did a study on renovating them. And I would not want to be in that position where someone's going to question us and ask us
Yeah.
what that is.
With the air quality for the fire station, you already have to spend, I don't know how many thousands of dollars. So,
Have you seen the Department of Public Health report on the fire station?
is it the air quality?
We just did the air quality one we just got
Right.
a couple of weeks ago.
From the Department of Public Health?
No,
The air quality one they just did, is that the one you're talking about?
I sent you a copy of Department of Public Health's evaluation of the building relative to its use as a fire station. I don't know what you're talking to, we may be talking about the same thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Charlie, what's the currency of that? What date are you talking about?
2 months ago?
Oh,
Yeah, so that's the same one.
so we engaged over air quality tests of the fire station and the trailer, and that result has just come in.
Right.
They did it back in November, but the guy was unable to get the report to us until recently, so that's.
Okay, so that's,
But I think, back on this, I mean, the regulatory, I think regulatory rather than regulation, but regulatory would refer more to the building codes and all those kind of things that have to be up to date now, which is different than state-of-the-art facility and so forth. I mean, I think it's security, I'm not opposed to leaving both sentences in there, but just changing regulatory, to regulatory. But, I don't think we have to make it, complicated. I mean, just get the right couple sentences so people understand it.
So which way is it? Are we keeping the sentence or are we crossing off the first sentence?
well, let's,
I think they're different things, I really do. I think they're just there's different things.
The current building codes, I mean, there's no way that they meet the regulatory standards of current building codes. I mean, that's really, so maybe we could add in,
I think the first sentence it's introducing the statement, and then the second sentence supports the statement. Such as,
Excuse me,
yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
Well, I was just, in the second sentence, I'm wondering, are far too small. Is that accurate for you? 'Cause I think you mentioned that you had...
It's size, so I actually had that, they're not, there are some that are small, but then there are some that are I don't need that much space, because again, we just filled rooms that were available and we used them as a function, but they're not designed and they weren't, designed for that reason. So some rooms are, for instance, our evidence storage is far too small. However, some rooms are bigger, such as...
We're not talking about specific rooms, we're talking about the buildings. So do you think overall the buildings are too small?
I don't believe, for the police department, I don't believe the size of the town hall is too small for us.
Oh,
For the
great.
size of our police department.
So I just wonder about a different wording there rather than about
Poorly
this,
laid out?
Functionally designed?
the lack functionality, or?
We could say lack functionality and adequate parking. We don't want to repeat the word lack twice. Does that sound right?
So the police department, we don't lack, we never really have a problem with parking, you know, in particular. I do think that the standards, that they fail the regulatory or regulation standards, however we decide to make that read, I think that's accurate. The fire department, though, on the other hand, is far too small. There's parts of the fire department that are far too small. So because we're talking about two different buildings that are completely different in size.
Well, we can make we can make a third sentence. Well, the current police and fire departments are in disrepair, lack of appropriate security, comma, state-of-the-art, comma, state-of-the-art utility infrastructure, and fail regulatory standards, period. So that's the first sentence. The second sentence is, especially the fire department is far too small, and does it lack adequate parking for the fire department?
There's enough, I guess there'd be enough parking if somebody's at town hall.
Especially the fire department is far too small, period. We won't put anything about parking in, because that's probably not a super big issue. Renovation would require enormous gutting at great cost to approach, let me write this down. Renovation would require enormous gutting at great cost to approach basic serviceable value.
I don't think they can ever be brought up to standard, public safety standards. Anybody else have an opinion about
I
that?
agree with you. I don't see that happening.
And can
Once you
never,
make significant upgrades, you're required to bring it to modern standards.
But I don't think those structures as they exist could be brought up to those standards.
to modern, what did you say, modern standards? What was-
The current standards.
To current public safety building standards.
The requirements. Maybe current public safety building requirements.
Requirements, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Something, Lisa,
I will retype all these and you can look at them again for next week. Building standards. Is that what you said, standards or requirements? What are we in?
Requirements, I
Requirements.
think.
I can read my notes. Should have put them on the laptop. Sorry.
All right. Any more discussion on question 2? All right, we'll go to question 3. How will building new structures be more cost-effective than renovating the 2 old buildings? I don't.
Just wonder if you want to expand on be more cost effective to maintain. I think that's a huge part of the new building as compared to some kind of retrofit. I don't know what data you have or what assertions you're comfortable making, but reduced annual expense is very motivating when you're looking at a high investment initially.
Is it fair to say we would reduce annual expenses to maintain, or is that's really not known, is it?
I think it's premature right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a much bigger building.
Well, and we could say, and would be expected to be more cost-effective to be maintained. Is that okay? Or is that
Cost
too?
effective is a given compared to the old buildings. More expensive.
Yes, that's right. There's a difference
Could be.
between those two.
Could be.
So you're saying
They're-
there's a difference between effective and efficient? Is that what you're saying?
No, they're pretty much the same. The end bill might be bigger for the new,
Yes,
larger
yeah.
building.
It's like Amy and Janet referred to as the lifetime costs
Mhm.
will be lower when you add in the annual maintenance and upkeep.
How should we state that? If we change, we'll be more cost-effective to maintain. How would you put that?
Um,
over the long term.
There you go.
Building new would result in lower lifetime costs to the community. When you take into account the lower maintenance and upkeep.
It's a small leap, but I agree.
Building up.
How are we on that question? Do we feel, with that response, do we feel content with it? Anybody?
I think, again, this will be draft
Yeah.
Okay.
2.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's close enough for now, and
Right.
then, it's hard to write these as a group, so I think we
Yes,
can
it
get
is.
some
Yes.
newish language in here, and then
All right.
we can come back and take a look at it.
All right. Number 4, where will a new public safety building be built? And it's, okay, this is the change.
I know people identify it with Cumbies, but it's not technically across from Cumbies, really.
Well, I don't know what else to say. We cannot use Zero College Highway. There are 4
It's
Zero
across from
College
Parker
Highways.
O'Grady and Dow Insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I-
more across Parker O'Grady than it is Cumbies.
Right,
So I will change that.
right. Across from Parker
If
O'Grady.
you ask anybody where Parker O'Grady is, no one's gonna know.
That's what I'm thinking.
So we can put
Everyone knows
near,
where Cumberland Farms
near
is.
Cumberland Farms, but across.
Adjacent.
Yeah, adjacent. Or, yeah. Adjacent.
Wouldn't be across. So if we could find the number or address of Parker O'Grady, we'd say.
Well, I can look
across
that
from
up. I can look
Such
it
and
up.
such college.
But something like that. Like,
Number-
you could still leave something
Yeah.
in there for Cumbies if that's the main landmark and just say
Everybody,
near Cumberland Farms, but across from Parker O'Grady or something. Nobody's gonna know Strawberry Manor except for
well,
Charlie
at this
and
point,
Christina,
we're not even
so-
sure.
Strawberry.
We end up talking codes a lot, but no one else knows what we're referring to.
All right. I'll look up the number for Parker O'Grady so they know that.
For people who live far removed, but still in our zip code, you might say between Gun Road and Lynn Drive.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. All right, I'll fix that.
Gun Road, a lot of people know. Lynn Drive, not so much, but that's
I
relevant.
think that's a better
Okay.
locator than buildings.
I'll fix that.
That's what, okay.
And do you like the sentence, "A property is a combination of a purchased site and a gifted site, though acquisition of either has yet to be approved at town meeting"?
But
It's a portion of that larger parcel.
Well, it doesn't say it's a large parcel, it just says a combination of a purchased site and a
Of a
gifted site.
purchase site. No, I was just wondering about now identifying it between 2 roads. That's an awfully large vacant parcel.
Well, there's also
Undeveloped.
2 houses there between those 2 roads too, you know? There's private homes down there closer to Gun Road.
It's the only public curb cut that would be between Gun Road and Lynn.
Actually, Park Place is across the street from
Yeah, that's,
Across the street, but along that eastern frontage, yeah.
Parker Grady's 124 College Highway.
Oh, thanks.
Opposite 124. It's pretty
Okay.
simple.
And one other thing I thought might be helpful putting there, and maybe in the precursor at the beginning of the sentence is, it's still going to be centrally located. Right? So, it's not going to be in the Ponds area, it's not going to be in the Russellville area, it's still going to be centrally located.
Okay. All right, I'll
how about a
insert-
centrally located property on the east side of
Yes.
College Highway?
That's
Okay.
better.
Right.
That's
I like
much
that.
better.
College Highway.
Gotcha. I'll fix it.
All right.
Then you say opposite, and people can Google it all day long.
Okay, on to number 5. A new building should be built behind the current fire department where the town owns several acres. If not there, why not?
This is a question I hear all the time from people. And I had that question myself to begin with.
The
I
answer's
think-
pretty
I
comprehensive.
think your response is
Yeah.
great.
Did I convince myself? Is that what
You convinced me.
Okay.
Any other discussion on that? Everyone good with that?
Looks good to me.
All right, number 6, moving along. What will a new building cost to construct on the proposed site?
What do you think, Charlie?
I don't like 24 million, but I think you're accurate in your response.
I think we're looking at higher than that.
I
Aren't
do
we up
too.
to about 30 million? Are we?
You're the high end.
Remember, the hard costs are for 20,
I know, I'm trouble.
The chair should be calling on you.
for
That's right.
Excuse me.
a 27,000 square foot building at $900 a square foot. That's just hard costs. Remember, they
Yeah.
said the soft costs are 30% above that, so it is at least a $30 million building.
So how should we say it without putting 30 million on there? Should we say 30 million? That'll like scare everybody up.
Yeah.
Should we say that figure?
Over
Will-
double?
Will more than double.
Okay.
Yeah, over double.
Or will likely.
Well, she's saying more than.
Will, okay.
Should we say more than?
I'm not saying not say that, I'm just like, will more likely double.
Will likely more than
Yes,
double.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Double.
All right. Question 7. What efforts have gone into obtaining state, federal, and private grants or alternative funding to help with the costs?
People aren't gonna know what ARPA is, we probably have to put it out.
Spell it out? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
American Rescue Plan
Act.
Act.
Just put ARPA in parentheses, but
Okay.
fill it.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering if the last, where it says, include, the last sentence, any funding opportunity, building grants, and outside of borrowing will be sought upon availability. As soon as we get them, as soon as we get that availability, depending on, I mean, we're gonna be, we'll get, I mean, we might seek assistance if, say, a grant were to come out tomorrow. We might seek grants tomorrow. You know, so what I mean by that is we're not just gonna wait until the town votes for it. We're gonna try to,
Yeah, depending on grant opportunities
Yeah.
available or something
Yeah.
like that.
Okay. And so drop off the town vote
right,
thing?
right.
You saw it.
As they become available.
As they become available, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay. 8, will Southampton's property taxes go up?
I think in the first sentence, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, hold on just a moment. Anybody have any questions on that one, or comments on that? Go for it.
Thank you. The first sentence, the first mention of debt exclusion, I think you're talking about borrowing or a land acquisition. The exclusion is covered in the next sentence. It goes off the tax rolls upon completion. So if you anticipate that it might not be a debt exclusion and add to the base assessment for the town going forward, I suggest not. Then it needs editing.
probably the amount for this, it depends. If we were talking about the land acquisition and we have to acquire perhaps the commercial property, that's a smaller amount, probably more prone to debt exclusion. A huge amount, like this might be, I think is probably a borrowing, long-term borrowing, which would be an override, which would affect property taxes going forward.
Well,
So we've got to be clear what the questions we want to ask, or what we want to, what we want to say. Will the property taxes go up if we build?
Right.
Or build? But, yeah, but it would be most likely we'd have to go out for borrowing on that, because it's too big for a short-term, like 10-year debt exclusion probably.
well, isn't that what it says? A debt exclusion or loan, that's borrowing.
If we're talking about construction,
Do we have to separate? That's what I'm asking. Do we have to separate that for the answer to this question?
we wouldn't use a tax, I don't think we'd use a debt exclusion if we're going to be building something. It's usually a smaller,
But it says or, loan.
I don't know, so I'd have to defer to somebody else that would know this answer.
Well,
Well, we have three things in play right now. One being buying the commercial land,
right,
which may be an exclusion. But if we're looking for the $3 million for construction, I don't know where that's gonna fall, because all of a sudden it's $3 million. That may be a debt exclusion
for
vote.
an architect.
yeah, but I really think you're getting into the weeds. I honestly think the question is just, will our taxes go up?
Then the answer is yes.
Yeah, and so it says that. Even in the debt over multiple years is incorporating the property tax.
Apologies.
Does that sound good? I mean, does it, I mean, just for the simple answer? I think it's all important, the details you're bringing up, and those can be discussed, but,
And I agree with you totally.
yeah.
At town meeting, we'll know what it is.
I must be honest, I would be amazed if somebody in town didn't realize their taxes were gonna go up. I mean,
In
like-
either case, in either case.
So what's the consensus? We're gonna leave it as is? Is that the consensus here that I'm getting?
I say
You can
yes.
start with yes,
I say
period.
yes.
All right.
But yes, what?
Yes, period.
Yes, period, okay.
Right.
Yeah, that would.
Don't ask me for
Sorry.
Is that as
Yes.
as simple as the committee wants it?
Shall I just do yes, period?
That's it? That's what I mean.
I wouldn't stop there.
Here we have these very, very,
How about I do yes,
comprehensive answers, and then we just have yes.
exclamation point, and then the answer?
Yeah, I mean, there are, you know, there's basically two options open to the town to finance such projects, right? So, unless there's some millionaire that comes forth, or we win the lottery, or...
Billionaire.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, millionaires don't mean much anymore.
I would recommend saying yes. Put it first, and then if you...
Then some
yeah,
explanation.
yeah.
Whatever's right there.
Yeah.
Because that is the question.
All right, I will do that for the next draft. Let's see how it looks.
Number 9.
All right, can CPA funds be used to defray the costs?
It's interesting, because somebody that I would have thought would have understood how CPA funds are allocated and utilized said to me, why are we spending money on other things that CPA funds are used for? As if to say we need a building, and I was fascinated by that person's lack of understanding of what CPA funds are used for.
So why don't you start this one with no?
No, period, right? And then,
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Consistent. What the heck?
I
Gotcha.
read my mind. All right, any other discussion on that? I think that's pretty clear cut.
Do you want me to conclude the explanation as well, or just no?
10,
10.
what will be the cost to maintain a new building compared to renovating the existing buildings? This is what I want to know, exactly where you got these
Well, this
figures from.
46.6 you gave me, Chris.
I came up with that. Where did you come
Yeah.
up with that? I think I looked at fiscal year '23, all the building expenses, so utilities and so forth for police and fire, and came up with that figure for, we can double check it, but that was the, any utility-related expense for
Mhm.
both buildings.
Mhm.
Does that sound high, low? Does that sound reasonable to you guys, or no?
I would say it's,
I can check what I have.
I don't know, it seems to be a little bit high.
Yeah,
on my end. I don't know what you have, but, so that's,
Yeah, I'd have to look.
I'd have to look.
All right, well, why don't you,
We'll do a double check and I'll check.
Yeah,
on
I'll
this.
double check we'll just go by fiscal year '23. And are we looking for specifically energy bills or also just general maintenance of the building as well?
I think I was looking at maintenance as well as.
All right, good.
But-
Is that what makes it easier? All right.
Yeah. Double
Okay,
where I
so
came up
check.
with that right figure.
And that's what the question is.
I'll reconfirm
is
figures.
to maintain.
Yes.
so it's not just utility, because there's going to be utility costs for,
So this addresses the cost of the current buildings. It doesn't talk about comparing it to the new, really. So maybe Amy and Janet could give us some figures of what we might anticipate for building expenses?
I don't think they've probably gotten far enough to be able to offer.
and so maybe there, we have to rephrase the question.
Kind of comes down to that word effective and efficient again, right? Because,
Well, why don't we just change the question to, what does the maintenance of the existing buildings, what is the cost to the town to maintain the existing buildings? And not worry about comparing.
Annual cost
What are the annual costs
to maintain the existing buildings.
to maintain the existing,
why would we have that question though?
well, maybe we don't want it,
You know,
Maybe not.
what information would that provide
Well,
to
only it
support a
just
new
kind of
building?
supports the number one, and maybe we don't want it. We take it out.
I'd leave it into this draft, and let's revisit it again.
Say it again, Charlie.
I would leave it in this coming draft.
Okay.
And then we can strike it afterwards if we,
All right, I'm just going to rephrase the question, because we don't know comparatively.
Unless we were to say, if we were to say that the current buildings, this is what, we don't know what the current maintenance will be, however, we do know that they'll be more efficient, the buildings will be more efficient. We know that for a fact.
I'll work on that draft.
Yeah, that included the custodian for $4,660. It included police building expenses, $24,136. And fire EMS building expenses at $17,865.
Okay.
That's the actual expenditure
Yeah.
for '23.
All right, perfect.
Where was the other station that I didn't even know we had? Bloomer Road? is it?
Leamer Road, yeah.
Leamer Road, yeah.
That's all included.
That's included, I didn't
Yeah.
even know there was one down there.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, you have double cost because you're paying for utilities and stuff at the PD and
There you go.
the fire.
Yeah. Let me work on that one.
Okay. Question 11, what green technologies such as solar, e-charging stations, permeable driveways are being considered for a new building? Will fossil fuel power a new building?
We can talk about the couple things that we mentioned during the, things we went over with the architects on the HVAC system, no?
Okay, what should we say? What was, geothermal? Is that what the one?
Well, she said that
That was
was
an
something we could look at.
This is meant to be a general response,
Mhm.
not too specific. How should we change it?
Well, what if we were to just say, at one point, just maybe not specifically state solar, e-charging stations, and permeable driveways, what green technologies,
Okay.
and then we list perhaps what green technologies are being considered for a new building.
Okay.
And then we can include what is being considered, yes? As far as the HVAC systems?
Sure.
Or you could say, are green technologies being considered?
Yeah.
And
That's better.
that has a yes, too.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we don't have to be so specific.
Right.
Because we haven't decided yet, we don't have the information, we're not at that point to decide.
Right, we could say that, during the study, we're investigating
Right, correct.
options such as whatever that other one was called. It was geothermal, but there was the other one that was gonna be very costly, so the main one we were looking at was.
That was geothermal, that was the most common, most.
It was
Yeah.
what did you call it?
VRF, I don't know if you consider that green.
Yeah.
There's efficiency and then there's green and people.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
like,
true.
Two separate
You're right.
things,
It
yeah.
overlaps. Green technology's a little different than efficient.
Well, wouldn't photovoltaic be considered green?
Right, but we're not considering
We aren't? Isn't that on the table still?
I don't think
I
it
think
is.
we
No.
have to build a roof so it
Yeah.
Can
Yeah,
hold it.
yeah, I think so.
Right,
It's
but
being
that
considered.
Doesn't mean we're going
We may not do it right away, but they've got to build the roof to meet those specs, I think. for-
to. I can
for the
say, you
future.
can say we're considering it,
Yeah.
the cost thing, make it so we're not able to do it, but
Right.
it would be worth consideration.
But I think we're trying to, the second part of that question, we're trying to move away from fossil fuel dependency or something like that.
Well, didn't she say by a certain year in the not-too-distant future, it's going to be impossible to build a municipal building that depends on fossil fuels? I think they said that at one point, didn't they, Mark?
I think that's the ideal, but I think we're a ways away from that. Yeah, for this question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that we have to.
Okay.
That's specific to that question.
All right, let me walk on another draft of this.
I think, what you have is pretty good,
Oh, you do?
yes,
Oh, good.
without getting too into specifics.
So leave it as is, pretty much so, except rephrase the question to be a yes/no answer, as opposed to an open-ended.
Is this number 12?
11.
11 still.
So instead of what green, are there green?
Are there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are green technologies being
Yeah.
considered?
I think the answer is good, too.
Okay, good.
All right.
As far as fossil fuel, it most likely will power our emergency generators, because we can't get natural gas,
Yeah.
right?
If that leaves you with diesel, that's about it.
Well, that's not that's not how you're gonna be running the facility, that's an
Not on a
emergency,
day-to-day.
that's
Right.
separate.
Yes.
It was in the question about fossil fuels.
Should we take off that question about fossil fuel? Just leave it off?
I don't consider us running the building
Without
with
it.
a generator, that's only under emergencies,
Right.
and
Right.
everybody's gonna want police and fire, whether you burn fossil fuel or not, in an
Right.
emergency.
But even we'll be burning fossil fuel regardless, even
Right.
maintaining it. Because we're not going completely green, geothermal
No,
or
it's
solar.
it's gonna be
Electric.
pretty much all electric. Maybe you might use the gas as a backup.
Okay. All right, gotcha.
But it still wouldn't be, the building itself would be pretty much all electric.
All electric, okay.
With maybe the gas backup for heat.
Right.
So can we say that we're looking to move away from fossil fuel use?
The question is
I mean, we've
asked, I
gotten that
think we
question
should
from
answer
residents,
it. I
you know,
would say yes.
Please design any new buildings without the use of fossil fuels.
You can say yes,
So,
How about the second, I'll make an additional sentence in terms of the response to the question. The expectation is to move away
yeah.
from relying on fossil fuels.
Yeah, so take that out of the question part and put it in the answer. Don't make it part of the question.
Okay, take it out of the question, okay. Geez, I'm looking at it already. Okay.
All right. Question 12. Will a new building have a community meeting
Well, we gotta
room?
take A off.
Or A or the S, yep. Emergency warming or cooling shelter, a shooting range for police practice, and a sally port for police safety.
That was a specific question that a policeman that is retired asked.
Is Sally EY? S-A-L-L-E-Y or?
No, I don't, I believe it's, I don't know now that you brought that.
No, I
to my
think
attention. Is it
it's
EY?
just Y.
Is it Y?
I think so.
I think so, yeah.
And
Yeah?
I have reservations about using public safety complex for emergency warming and cooling shelter. Every training I've gone through with FEMA and Homeland Security has always been that you do not put people in that facility because it inhibits that facility from responding.
My thought process on that as well was not to use the word shelter. I would use, if we're gonna use anything, a facility. Warming or cooling facility, you know,
As soon as you're doing them overnight,
Yeah.
your operations is gonna get buried. And I know from real life experience dealing with those types of situations. That's why we have an MOU with the church, why we have understandings with the school, and we try to utilize those types of facilities. You don't want to use your town hall, you do not want to use your fire and police station for that.
So just take that out. Just leave community room, Sally Port.
Or leave it in and then answer negatively.
I would leave the question in, but I would answer the question.
I think people are going to be, because climate change is on a lot of people's minds, I would expect to get a question about cooling and heating centers. So to the extent we've got an MOU with the church and we've got negotiations or whatever informal understanding with the school, that's part of an answer. But the reality is we haven't ever acted, to my knowledge, to equip anything
no.
to make them functional should we need it. And I think that's a step that has to be taken sooner rather than later. If we can't use this building and make it ready like that, for Charlie's ideas, then we need to, that's a separate question, but I mean, we need to make something in town functional to use.
So the only thing with shelters now, and not to go too far with this, as Charlie knows, you know, you have people with prescription medications. You have to deal with that. You have to deal with their any type of animal, you know, helping animal or service animal. You have to accommodate. You have to accommodate. There's a lot of different accommodations, and that's why you see regional centers, regional shelters versus individual communities.
Yeah.
Because of all the standards now.
So ours is what, Northampton?
Ours is, it would be at Smith Oak, the regional is
Yeah.
usually at Smith Oak.
I mean, if you want a warming and cooling room in the building, yeah, okay. But that means they warm up, they stay there for a little while, grab a sandwich and leave.
Yeah, not an overnight
Right,
shelter.
not a shelter.
Not a
It's- it's
So maybe we can clarify that language.
Right.
How about saying a temporary warming and cooling room? Temporary rather than emergency.
And there you be.
Both chair.
Sorry, I'm late. Do you need to warm up or cool down?
So we want to use that one?
I don't know.
So we'll go with
Working on your-
a temporary or warming and cooling,
Room or facility? You like facility?
or center, or room. Just as long as we don't want to use the word shelter. We don't want to use the word, Charlie's correct. We
We don't want to
use the
imply
word
something that's going to be overnight,
Right.
right?
And then in the answer, public
Question
safety,
12.
the public safety building will not be used. Well,
What you're saying, what I'm hearing, Madam and Mr. Chair, is it's secondary to other arrangements.
It's not even secondary, I mean, we don't have the means. We don't have the resources to hold a shelter in Southampton.
And I
A
appreciate
cooling-
you're holding up that.
A cooling facility or room, we do. You know, if we needed to, let's say we had a serious heat wave and we needed to have the community room staffed with either firefighter personnel or police, we could do that for, 16
Number 12,
hours.
Barry.
But we wouldn't be able to do that for a 24/7 period.
well, how about leaving the question as is and then just saying the public safety building will not be used as an emergency shelter during excessively hot and cold weather, and then describe what will be used instead. What is it, other buildings?
I think just striking the word shelter. A public safety building can be used as an emergency location.
How about Charlie, a public safety building can be used as a temporary warming and cooling room
Center.
or center.
Yeah, that's better.
Leave it that way,
But
keep it simple.
get that word shelter out of there because
All
that's
right.
implying that we're having
And I even
overnight
took
use.
the word emergency off. A public safety building can be used as a temporary warming and cooling center, period. And then the part about overlapping functions, is that okay?
Will overlap function in all spaces and designs. What do you mean by that? Someone might ask, well, why isn't the Sally porch as part of the
Well, it
fire
says-
department
well,
bays?
it gives an example right after that.
But you can take away the emergency shelter.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
And a cooling, warming room.
Yeah.
I don't want to repeat that, as a community room, period.
Okay.
Because I don't want to repeat that. And,
Well, and I think we're intentionally talking about there being a community use room, right? I mean,
Well, my hope is
we
can
built
have-
that in the design,
Yeah.
right? So there's nothing wrong with saying that.
well, it's also the training room.
It's shared, that's what you meant by that,
Yeah,
it's a shared,
yeah.
it's a
Yeah,
shared room,
so
yeah,
shared purpose room or something
for example.
that will serve for training for the fire and police personnel as well as a possible community room for meetings or something like that.
Well, I think your wording is okay, though. It's concise.
Personnel. It's, this thing, doing it by committee is not easy.
No, sir, you're right.
I'll do the next, but Sally Port is spelled correct on there, by the way. I looked it up, just want you to know. Dick and Sally, you know?
All right, we'll move to 13. Will a new building incorporate decorative facades, stylish lighting, fashionable features that enhance appearance but don't really add to public safety functions?
No.
No. Period.
Maybe get rid of that last question. Will it
Well, that was a
maintain a small-town
specific
feel?
question.
Because I know it might have been, but there's going to be a lot of specific questions, but that
Yeah.
particular
All right, we'll
building
take that one out.
isn't, I know they're adjusting it, but
And then I'd like the answer to that.
I think
That second question, Cindy, you can leave out the letter A there, that a small town feel.
Well, we're taking the whole question off.
I think that's a great response.
You say it all the time.
That's why I think that's great.
It's true.
Yeah.
All right, everyone good with that response? Besides me?
Yeah.
14. Let's build a pre-engineered metal building, a Butler building, as a cheaper option to a stone or brick building. And we received some language from
Yeah.
Amy and Janet about this.
And I've underlined a few sentences that I thought could be extracted
Okay,
for that. Shall I
great.
read them?
Yes.
And then I've underlined them, and then I
You
can
can just
give them
hand it
to
to
you.
me or
If we agree, and you don't have to agree, of course.
Okay.
And I broke my other glasses, so I'm having to put on 2 pairs. All right, so one way pre-engineered metal buildings achieve their cost savings is by engineering the structural steel framing members to be the absolute bare minimum required. I think we can eliminate bare. This is wording from Amy Dunlap. Public safety facilities are assigned the most stringent structural risk categories in the Massachusetts State Building Code, meaning that they must be engineered to withstand increased snow, wind, and earthquake loads beyond other commercial buildings. Since pre-engineered metal buildings are not typically designed with these added loads factored in, pre-engineered building manufacturers' designs must be customized to meet the needs to public safety projects, adding to the construction cost and reducing the savings another building type might replace, project type. And then pre-engineered metal buildings are very difficult and expensive to modify in the future because they are designed with the minimal steel required at the time of construction. These buildings might not be able to handle any future new loads to their frames without costly modifications. That's still a lot of wording, but we have a page and a half to choose from. And
The only thing is, Ted and I were up in Goshen the other day, and there's a pre-engineered metal building up there, and people are going to say, well, wait a minute, what about...
There's one right in Holyoke, too.
In Holyoke, yeah. So I'm just thinking,
But, I mean, that was years ago, you know, codes
so
have
I think we
changed.
need to say something about codes have changed. And while there are existing pre-engineered buildings in Western Mass.
The cost have changed for those buildings also.
Okay.
The cost of the metal
All
and
right,
everything.
let me take that piece and write that in, and then we'll do something about costs have changed and codes have
I think
changed.
the one sentence that you read, Christina, referring to the MGL and stringent, whatever that sentence was, something like the word stringent, you know, stuck in my brain there. So whatever that sentence was seemed to be a pretty strong
right.
argument.
So Cindy, why don't you take this and then we can whittle it down
Okay.
a little bit more.
Okay.
Now, one question I would have, are you sure Goshen is a Butler building or is it stick frame with metal siding?
I am not sure, it was metal, it was
Yeah,
metal.
but that metal siding
Well,
is metal
that's
siding.
a good point, because
not the same
people,
thing.
people will drive around and say, well, even Williamsburg, is that?
No,
I mean,
West
West
Hampton,
Hampton.
well, I've got to call in to
That's
Steve
stick-built.
Holt. Yeah, that's
That's
stick-built,
stick-built.
it's not prefab.
So are there, you think there's one in Holyoke, an actual
Oh,
prefab
yeah,
one?
not far from the Holyoke Mall.
Okay, all
White
right.
Farms Road.
Well, let me fiddle with the both of them.
And they, do you have this? Because they actually bulleted, you know,
Yeah.
No, it's
Three things here.
It's the other,
Whiting
you're right.
Farm.
Yeah, it's Whiting Farms.
The one down by Kmart Plaza.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
because they generalized through bullets, just a higher cost for essential facilities, less adaptable, and potential added cost under public procurement.
I thought we could have that document as a backup, if anybody really, and there is a particular individual that has made a big point of this and was likely to stand up at town meeting, so I think we need to give that person
A
that
letter.
in advance. And anybody else that, I don't mean to point out, I never said a name, but I
And
want
be
that person
prepared
to
read
understand
at
that,
the-
pardon me?
And be prepared to read that at the meeting.
If it
need
comes
be.
up, yeah, it's a long one.
Or excerpts from it.
Well, what I'd really like is that individual to read the thing and then say, I used to think and now I'm convinced. That-
You are ever hopeful.
Well,
It's okay.
I understand,
I'm an
I understand why,
optimist.
I understand why somebody outside, I would have thought the same thing until I read this. I can understand why somebody
yeah,
would think
I
that
think
way.
it came up in the very first meetings we had of this committee, that very question, right?
The only thing is we can't give an explanation this long.
No.
That's just too much.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we can have it available as a
You're
handout.
going, what do you think?
Right.
Okay. All right.
That's true. If we have it as a handout, if we make, I guess, at the forum, is that where we want to have it?
Well, if it gets asked at the forum, we can count on Amy and/or Janet to,
Right, you could have
Hopefully
a
it's-
printout and the handout on the table
Yeah.
or whatever.
Right.
okay.
We should prepare Amy and Janet to have to respond to this as well. Because I
Yeah.
think that they're gonna have to, you're right, this question will likely be brought up.
Okay.
Okay. Where we are, we're at 14. 15. When will construction of a new public safety building start?
And
Yes.
I think the last sentence, construction is not expected to begin for another year. A few years means 3 or more. And if
Can we say
we,
at least a year?
yeah, well, okay, what I'm getting at is, if we say a few years, that's too far out in the timeline.
Takes away the urgency.
Yeah, and
Okay.
And if we look at, right now, we purchased the land, and we get the money to do the engineering design. We get the engineering design this coming winter. We'll be at town meeting the coming year looking for the money to actually start construction.
Shall we do what John said? Did you say, John?
I just said at least.
Construction is not
It would be
expected to
fiscal
begin
20
for at least a
Fiscal
year.
27, wouldn't it be? You're starting at the end of 2026.
Yeah, it'd be 26, 27. It all depends on when we hire the
At least a
engineer
year would
to take
cover
and
it.
do all these designs.
Right, and all permitting and all that stuff.
When
That's
is
what
that's
they're
ready.
looking for.
Yeah.
But I don't want to say a few years, because it's like saying, yeah,
Yeah.
we need to get this done right now, but
Yeah.
we'll do it in a few years.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've already said that costs will keep going up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
And
like-
we do want to keep it rolling, so that's a good point.
So I think we can allude to the fact that there's many steps to go in terms of, getting an architectural firm on board. I mean, somewhere we'll get to it with the checklist that Scott's put together, for example, but I mean, we can allude to the fact that it's not, just because we vote on this, it's not gonna start happening this year.
Well, that sort of says that,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
so-
All the different steps.
But a few years, Charlie's saying, may just give people the impression that it's many, many
Okay.
more years out, so.
Do you like what John said then? Expected to begin for at least another year. How's that sound?
Anybody?
Let's see.
Or within 2 years?
Or in about a year.
Or do you want to reinforce that there's another decision before the voters?
Another big step.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see 30 million, they have no choice.
That'll be the day.
So are we saying, like, are you alluding to upon approval of all the steps required, or?
This might be a good opportunity to spell out the steps.
Yeah, but this is supposed to be sort of an overview.
Well, to list what they are.
So we have, so far, we have the town must vote to acquire property for a new building, either by purchase or donation, vote to approve funding and source of the funding, then hire an architectural firm.
That's,
What do you, Barry, what are you suggesting what we want to put in there in addition?
Maybe just bullet points, like what you just said.
Yeah.
There's a couple more key things on your list. Or-
in order to proceed with construction.
We've got to get an owner's project manager for one. I mean,
There's a lot of steps here that we
It's more
haven't
than
gotten.
we need an owner's project manager to help us hire the architectural firm first. So there's another whole step that's got to happen.
Right.
It's almost-
So,
All right.
So let's not try, I just don't want to overanalyze it.
I think we,
they're the ones that kind of keep an eye on, what the contractor's doing, and are they, keeping track of their building the specs like we.
is there another name for the project manager? It's O something?
Owner's
Oh,
project manager.
OPM.
OPM,
OPM.
Back in the day, it used to be the clerk of the works.
yeah. So it's that kind of person.
All right, I'm gonna spell it out a little bit more for the next draft. How's that sound?
Okay, so you're gonna list some of the more steps, is what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So with a little luck, by May 26th town meeting, is that what you're saying? Then we'd be going to the town for,
Construction.
here's what it's gonna cost us.
Yep.
Okay,
So I think you could say within the next 2 years, or something like that.
all right. Did you get that, Cindy? All right, go on to 16. If Southampton constructs a new building, what are the plans for the current police and fire department buildings?
I wouldn't say no plans, I'd say they are unknown. Plans for the old buildings are unknown.
Okay.
How would you come to know them?
We wouldn't be able to until, that's a process so far in the future that we wouldn't.
Would entail separate process.
Completely separate process, yep. And nothing can be done, especially on town hall, on Old Town Hall, until the police are out of there.
That would be a committee by select board.
Right.
And that's a
Promise people an opportunity to weigh in, not in this context.
This isn't the place for it.
All right, 17. How can the town afford both a new senior center and a new public safety building?
A library and a highway department?
Read the whole thing.
staff.
Aren't these all basic municipal things that we have to think about in our town?
In both cases, we're getting significant donations. $2 million for the senior, land for the fire police.
Some plus or minus.
Well, I don't know, I wrote the answer hoping to say, step back and think about what we as citizens need to think about to have the community we have.
So you're saying this is an evolutionary process as our community grows and expands?
I didn't say that, but yeah, I guess.
I think it's a fine answer.
To sort of meet current and future needs.
Yeah, to serve the citizens the way they expect.
Well, you could make mention of, the financial donation for this senior center.
Who are you looking for financial donations?
Yeah, well, they're kind of both of them are drops in the
Yeah.
buckets. They're appreciated,
That's, I
but they're
think,
just
part of it.
a drop in the
Inspire
bucket.
generosity.
Don't want to get them so far, unfortunately, but it's a good start.
Well, I could say,
Inspire generosity.
I could add a sentence saying something like,
As we've gotten a good start,
the town has had a great, maybe we'll have that multi-millionaire, billionaire come forward if we write that.
I don't really see anything wrong with your response. I mean, you're essentially saying that the voters in town have to decide what becomes a priority and what's secondary.
I think it's a fine answer.
That's all.
Okay.
It's always been that way.
I think it
I
gets
just
too
wanted to
complicated
throw
when
in-
you're talking about land donations and all that
Yeah, I
stuff.
do too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm just wondering, instead of, just required for safety and quality of life, to meet their expectations of town services or something like that, or rather than listing out all the services.
Oh.
Maybe, that would be just one way to shorten it. Municipal services required for safety and quality of life to meet residents' expectations of something, I don't know, but take it or leave it.
Well,
I say
shortening
leave
it
it.
would help.
Well, the thing is, there's going to be someone going, I have never been to that library. I always go to, Northampton's library.
Kids don't go to school.
And somebody else is going to say, my kids don't even go to school in town. I had kids and they were in that one-room schoolhouse somewhere.
Called the, being a citizen in any given municipality.
Yeah.
I know that's what you're trying to say, I know, but.
I do remember going to a town meeting where somebody said, why do we need a bike path? Just ride around in circles around those expensive ball fields that we got. Okay, so.
Sounds like a good one.
All right. Are we good with these questions for now?
All right.
Any more discussion on
I
these?
may have to leave soon to go home to get this in typed before I forget it.
So just to put, this is eventually, when we get it right, we're gonna put this out on the website, yeah? Where else do we want this? Is that it?
I think we should use some of these questions as part of the brochure. Not every one of them, obviously, but maybe the first one. Or a variation on it.
I think we do need to decide, talk about the brochure.
Well, that's up next, so
Yeah.
why don't we, we'll roll right into that. So we didn't finalize the FAQ, but we're getting closer. So the next agenda item is discuss mailer and signboard layouts. So let's talk about the mailer. So Cindy, you were discussing how you think there should be some language on there from these questions.
I just proposed that we've spent time working on this. Some of these questions might be useful on the brochure or the mailer.
Well, Cindy, you brought up the point in an email to the chief and me that we have to focus in on what we're asking of the residents this time around. Now, after John left last week, I thought it would be good on the outside half of one of the pages to put the new facility, but then your question brings to mind that we're not going before the residents to request the facility now. It's land acquisition and design costs. So I think we need to establish that first, is that, and focus on that. How much of the new actual building are we putting forward at this time? Both in the public forum, in all of our public engagement strategy. What is our message? Is it just land, for now, is it land acquisition and design?
Well, our message also is the need, right? The need. So I think it's very important to, in that mailer, to show, at least at some level, whether it's a, at least part of it, the current state of the.
Correct.
So they say, wow, I didn't realize it was that bad. They need a new place.
But not presenting what that new place might look like?
Right.
Question. The other question that came to me over this last week is we've been talking about informative and not persuasive. However, this is being the Byhold is being funded by a private individual. Does that, at some point, we as a committee have to become persuasive, right? We're trying to get this passed. Do we have to be mindful of that for what we're doing with the brochure?
So it's going to be paid out of by a private individual?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
To our understanding.
It was a donation, yes.
Okay. I think there's a little bit more leeway than that.
Why do we not want to be persuasive from the get-go anyway?
Because if town monies are used, you can't be persuasive. You can't be putting forth language that suggests people should vote one way or the other. It has to be just informational. That was a caution that Ed pressed hard on.
But what Scott just said was if it's
Yes.
private money,
No, right, that's why I brought it
shifts
up.
it all around.
And I don't know how the
Fine,
Barnes Aquifer
fine.
thing was done.
Sure.
Was that?
Well, he said that it would have to go to KP
Yeah.
Law to make sure that the town wasn't.
So like last year, just simply when we had the override, and we put, the large part of the override was in to support the fire department and some of the police department. There, we had a paper that was available at, or it wasn't a town meeting, it was at the election, I think, and it was one side where here's the pros, here's what happens if I vote for the override, and on the back side, here's what happens if I don't vote for the override. So you've got to present both sides, you've got to be neutral
Yeah, okay.
to present this.
Right.
Excuse me, let people make up
Both
their own
sides.
mind. So you've got to present kind of both sides. I mean, that's what we had to do in that case. Now, maybe not quite as stringent on this, I don't think. And I don't know, Cindy, you were involved, I think, with the Barnes Aquifer brochure. That was a pretty persuasive thing. I thought that wasn't,
And I don't think that ever went to KP Law either.
I doubt that it did.
Yeah, I mean, it was
No.
just meant to be informative
Yeah.
about where the aquifer is and
Right.
best practices
Right.
for don't put your
Yeah.
gasoline
Bill, like
down the
somebody
drain.
Send to Scott at some point if you have that, or a copy of one.
It's downstairs, I think, but if I
Oh,
can find a
okay.
copy, I will definitely do that.
Get him up to speed on a couple things.
Help me.
But I'm just thinking of other things that we might have done as handouts or brochures that maybe we've skirted the line a little too closely in some cases. So that Ed was just trying to caution us to be careful about how we present it, that's all.
Well, maybe that's a great way to approach this mailer, brochure, is we need this, and if we don't, this is what we're gonna have. In other words, both sides. We're gonna have, can we just renovate the current ones? As one of the, sort of zeroing in on, we're not building a new one, we're just renovating, we're painting and fixing windows and moving desks around, and that's not what we want. We want,
It's
we don't-
still not gonna meet building codes, it's still not
That's
gonna be
right.
functional, it's still not
That's
gonna
right.
provide a good environment. So, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, go ahead, Ian, you had the discussion with,
There's limited space, obviously, on this, and you don't want to drown somebody into language like this.
Right.
Because as soon as they get through the first paragraph, they're just going to toss it, right? So we have to, I think, the priority is to bring to their attention the conditions, and then probably secondary is exactly what you said. How we want to talk about the feasibility, what you had mentioned earlier.
Now, again, the mailer's supposed to come out after the public meeting, so the public information meeting is where we're going to be talking about the potential design, what we know so far.
I thought about that, Chris. Do you think we should send it out before the forum so people are aware of this and maybe get more attendees at the forum?
Right, we
if
were talking
can?
about putting the
good.
date on there, right?
Right. Put the date of the forum on this, because it would be nice to get more
That
attendees.
would be ideal, yeah.
At the forum, which-
Yeah, where we are in terms of making those final decisions, but I guess I sent you guys, I copied one of the photos, Rich, out of the air quality report that had the ceiling tiles falling down.
Mm-hmm.
I sent it to both of you, that I thought might be a better photo to include and substitute one of something there.
Yeah.
I just don't know how they show up in the brochure. Some of those, you know, they may look good as a photo, but by the time you put them in a brochure, do they really show anybody anything without having to, people want to be able to look at a photo and understand what it is.
What it is.
Without having to read something that says, oh, this
Right.
is, you know.
Right, that's what I
And I'm not sure if that particular photo I just forwarded to you guys earlier today will do that, but I just thought it might be a better photo of the existing conditions at the fire department.
Wait, all right, so I just heard, don't send this out after the forum, send it before the forum. Use this as a way to get people to the forum. But the pictures that you're talking about would be best put on a whiteboard as people are walking around Norris, cafeteria.
But they're supposed to be in the brochure, no? I mean,
Well, I'm thinking maybe they shouldn't be. Maybe we could limit what we put in the brochure, have more white space, have more specific message about come to the forum.
well, that's totally contrary to what John told us at the last meeting. He
Yes,
was
and we
advocating
need to,
photos and photos and photos.
yeah, and a lot of people and every residential household is going to get this,
Yeah.
and not everyone is coming to the forum. We need to get
Yeah.
the message out in both places, I think. I think it's important to pack this with as much concise information as we can, make it as persuasive. I do think this should be informational and,
Persuading them to come.
And I don't know why on the fold that he's got there, why he had such giant font on that. 'Cause that
Yeah, it took up a lot of
seems to
space.
take
It
which
took-
I didn't
yeah.
understand.
So why don't I try to facilitate this? What's the priority? Let's go over like the priority, the purpose, the secondary purpose, and if we have the tertiary purpose of this. Let's get that out of the way. The priority is what? What do we want to establish as the priority? Is to show the existing conditions, at least something to the effect of the existing conditions of the building and how they're old. I mean, these,
So it's basically question one, why do we need a new public safety building? Is that the
Yeah.
first priority?
so the purpose of building, and how do we articulate the purpose of the building? How would we do that? This is the stuff I want to get to John. I want to talk to John about. So how do we articulate in a how do we want to present to this priority?
Can I ask a framing question that may be even higher? The Q&A, I thought was a great standalone piece, and if it's carefully edited, could be the neutral piece. What I hear you describing now for a brochure, and thanks to a private donation, has some latitude to be advocacy. I think if you distinguish those two, you'll get an evergreen Q&A that you can use all the way through, and an advocacy piece that you're designing now.
So I guess Scott, and do you have any input on what kind of latitude we'd have?
I'd have to see it.
Yeah.
And I'm all for advocacy.
So let's start with the purpose of the building. How do we want to present?
I think it still is the educational piece of why we need this in the first place. I don't think we should skip over that and assume that people know that.
And what are we going to support? How do we support that? With the photos?
photos and statements.
That we're in buildings that are,
Yep.
turn of the 20th century, which people aren't going to necessarily sit there and do the math, so, say Civil War and 1900
Well,
buildings like
Why
guns.
don't we just, because we have to have as few words as possible and the most provocative pictures, use the very first sentence. Our current public safety professionals are housed in very old buildings, never originally intended to be used as police and fire departments, period. Have that as one of the things that we put right in the brochure. And then the pictures tell the rest of it. These folks that would have been our great-great-grandparents standing in front of the old schoolhouse.
The pictures tell a story, but you do need a paragraph.
Right.
Greg.
Or
The first.
use the
Q&A
whole
there.
first one there, that's long. Maybe,
It still would have to put in a couple of years of construction.
okay, all right.
From 1904 to 1863 or whatever, the 2 years, I think, was, they date from.
Permanent into the sound of it.
So what I have here is priority, purpose of the building and why, photos plus statements. We can have them refer to question 1 of the facts of the FAQ form.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you the modified one that we just worked on,
Okay.
okay?
Any more supporting efforts towards our priority? Anyone could think of?
The only other thing I can think of is the costs are rising. Costs are rising every single day. I mean, it's already risen so much since 2015, and if we don't do it now, talk about sound the alarm.
Yeah, that's where it goes back to that notion of the slogan. If we think we can use that slogan, if we have more leeway and put that sound the alarm slogan back in, that would be
Yeah.
helpful.
Are you going to keep the language there where it says these 161-year-old and 121-year-old? We're going to keep that?
No, this was just a concept that they gave us. This is not their final priority, you know. It looks to me.
It is pretty direct, though, I mean.
It is. I don't, you know.
Well, they were never up to code, so that language should be changed. I was wondering about using this same language to, are no longer safe, are not up to code, or were never up to code.
Right?
It was the code of the West.
Okay, so we have what Cindy had, costs are rising. I think that's important for the priority. Again, you know, because otherwise it's gonna, 5 years from now, it's gonna be 60 million.
Is there something we need to say about doing a combined quote-unquote complex versus 2 separate buildings that people know now? Why are we putting them together? Do we need to say anything about that?
If you're asking me, I would say in this brochure, maybe not, but maybe in the FAQ, that might be something in the, but in the brochure, I don't know if we'll have enough.
Well, you've got the more cost-effective than renovating the 2 buildings, but not quite the same, but.
And Barry, what would you mention earlier?
The big bold.
Right here?
Yeah, maybe that could be the first sentence of the paragraph, and then go to question 1.
So what we want to do is kind of elaborate on the age of the buildings, right?
Yeah, I think that needs to be said.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we'll start there, and then I'll give this information to them. And then as far as the secondary purpose of this, what's the secondary purpose?
Show up. Show up at the forum and definitely show up at the town meeting.
So the secondary purpose of this pamphlet is for attendance?
Don't you think?
Adding dates is what you're saying,
Yeah.
putting dates.
Well, be persuasive and say, we need to see you at the forum to become informed and
Learn
at
more
town
or something,
meeting
yeah.
to vote.
Learn more, community forum on April 10th or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a nice way to put it.
So community engagement, really, right? Another form of community engagement, to encourage more community engagement.
Well, more than engagement, to be there. I mean,
Well, if we can put our chosen slogan of sound the alarm, community.
what are we waiting for about approval for that slogan?
Well, I think if it's something being paid for by private ones, I think
That's okay.
Slogan's okay.
Okay, slogan's okay.
And that suggests that we are in need of public support.
So maybe I'm just gonna, if I may, just kind of divert slightly here. So the chief and I worked with the director of the Council on Aging, and remember we brought up the idea of having the video of the public forum shown at the Council on Aging. We've scheduled that. And this is gonna show up in the Council on Aging newsletter, which is basically attend the public forum discussing steps needed to build a new public safety building on Wednesday, April 10th, 6 p.m. at Norris School. Alternately, a special video showing of the forum will be shown at this Council on Aging on April 18th. I mean, so we want to get people to be at the public forum, but if they can't make it because they're elderly and don't go out at night, then they can go and see a videotaping of it. Would the chief president answer questions?
The forum starts at 7 though, not 6.
Oh, yeah? Are you sure?
Yep.
Okay, I better see if they too late to change that. Really? It's 6 down. In minutes, didn't I?
I just checked my phone, it's 7.
Okay.
Oh,
Just like any
So-
other town meeting. kind of thing.
So the secondary purpose of this, we want to get attendance, which also includes more engagement. Also include the slogan. Anything more to support that purpose? The attendance purpose? Anything on that pamphlet that we want to put? I know we're going to have that QR code, which is important.
Right. Or like, have your questions answered or something like that, come to the meeting, what, I don't.
And I think he mentioned 2 QR codes. One's to link to the frequently asked questions,
To the
right?
website itself.
So, wasn't, okay. I was
Yeah, he
thinking,
did say something about two.
One was for the video,
Yeah.
one was for the website.
Yeah. But the video will be,
Right,
I mean,
It'll
that's
be on-
it'll
right,
be on
Mark,
the
thank
public
you.
safety page
Right,
anyway, I
right.
mean, once we get it done, so,
Okay.
we can put it in a couple places. So I guess, part of it though is that how many photos are really needed and appropriate there. He's got a lot of photos, which, I don't know. We've got the 2 old building ones, right?
yeah, I think these are important.
I think-
I do too.
I do, too. Yeah.
I actually think that this one, the present fire station, and maybe this too, are important, more so than some of the interior shots. I find these a little bit hard to read. This one, I know what this is trying to do, these are, but would the average resident, even with the explanation, really be able to discern the condition that's being described? I'm not so sure.
So with the
And
2
that-
on the outside, do the 2 on the inside need to be there though? The 2 on the fire and,
Well, these show the historic buildings,
right,
untransformed,
okay.
and these are what they are
Sort of
that have been transformed into the firehouse and added on
So
to,
current facilities or something
yeah, the
like
current
that.
facilities. I think those 4 are important myself.
100 years later.
Yeah. 100 years later, here's where we are. Or 200 years.
Yeah, and this line would need to be, if you're gonna keep that line, it needs to be changed. Because it wasn't converted in 1971, it was added on.
Right.
What about the one that I'm looking from here, I can see the red fire door, is that showing the closeness to the wall, is that what
Yeah.
that is? The fire engine door?
Mhm.
Yeah, but I don't know that, can I see?
Yeah, you
read
I
can't
mean,
it?
that's where, spatial, some of the writing would need to come in, right
Yeah.
now, some of the issues are, if you only had like, no, I'm not sure what the other 2 photos, I can't see them from here, but
Here, I'll
if you
pass
kept
it
the one of
around.
the fire engine door, then you had more space to write something and say, current facilities are,
They have it up on the top there, it looks like, what each picture
inadequate
is.
door clearance, okay. Unsafe firefighter clearance, so that's,
With the arrow there in the distance,
yeah.
that's kind of important, I think.
What makes no sense?
Again, it's function too, Your firehouse does not support the number of trucks you even need. It doesn't support a tanker. Its size is important.
So,
I think maybe one of those would tell the, they all tell the same story, all three of them, so
Yeah.
maybe just one of them.
might not be able to tell one, with the photo of the fire station type space there without having three photos of. I kind of agree with John on that.
Yeah.
It's too many photos trying
Yeah,
to
it's
say
the
the
same
same
message.
thing. You know, you could put in that, I don't know, if this, I don't know if the ceiling tile thing will show up that are hanging down and moldy, because they may not show up well in there either. And then, I think your equipment one, Ian, the one with the charging equipment and
Mhm.
stuff,
Yep.
maybe? I mean, I don't know about the, I'm not sure if the office one.
No, I don't think that's,
Yeah,
I don't think we, yeah, I agree with you. I don't
Yeah.
think that really depicts much besides a messy office.
They'd say, oh, you can fix that without
Yeah.
building a new building.
Yeah.
yeah, and the, you know, the cruiser in the Sally Port, I mean, I don't know, may not be the best photo, it might
Right.
serve a purpose, but not, maybe not the obvious photo for somebody
Yeah,
to
those are
understand
all-
what the problem is there.
They're old photos from,
Yeah.
what, 2015, so.
No, well, but I mean, that may not be something that the average person would understand. So what, there's a car in the garage, what is that, what's the problem? I mean, that would be, I mean, just being very basic, that's what I would
So-
think somebody could say, right?
I think, let's talk about the ceiling tiles, but John made a point of saying photos seem to get the message out the best, right? And so we take those photos out, you know, we're still gonna have, now we'll have a lot of space. Are we gonna fill it up with language that might not be even read? Or do we fill it up with different types of photos?
Well, I think any of the language would need to be more bullet pointy rather than paragraph style.
Yeah,
All right.
Or
Something you
language
read very
describing
quickly
it.
and not,
the photograph.
Say that, Barry, I missed that.
Language describing the photos.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what, and I think to maybe have a single, maybe two photos in the fire station, but then clearly name what can't happen there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the doors can't open fully, correct?
Right.
Right.
And they won't house, what kind of truck?
The
Well, we have
tanker.
no more room for another,
Right.
for the tank.
They'll have to take a truck
Yeah.
out. And all those trucks carry water.
Right.
So in the winter, they'll freeze.
Right.
So the basic photo, whatever photos we end up using, I like that idea, where you're describing the inadequacy shown by the photo.
All right.
That's
Okay.
the problem.
In bullet points,
In
so
bullet
that
points.
it's not a lot of unnecessary
And we
language.
could, you know, use current photos, you know. Like I said, those are from, what, 2014, so.
And have you filmed, because you could even take a still shot, or extract an image from the film?
Right, well, I mean, the East Hampton media has been all through the building.
Right.
But yeah, it wouldn't be hard to take pictures of what we're talking about.
Okay. Stephen, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I'm going to leave in a minute, but I wanted to say this is an excellent discussion about the need. And everything that everybody's contributed, I think, helps to that. The solution, we're kind of not sure exactly what form that takes, but if you adopt is it bigger than the bread box? Yes, it certainly is. You've got X number of square feet, or offices, or bays, and you've scoped out or been diagnosed to need something different. So even if you don't show the picture of one embodiment, not the thing, you can say we're 25% short of square footage, and we're living 2 centuries past before the work comes.
Right. Basically.
Okay.
So I think the advocacy piece you're getting right on top of. As a taxpayer, what are you seducing me into? I can go 50% bigger. If you're going 300% bigger, you have a bigger case to make.
Yeah.
So far, we just
I'm
want to get you
sorry
to the
to
meeting and
derail
answer your
your meeting.
questions. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll pass that along. See, Steve, are you all set?
Tomorrow.
I'll pass this along to John at Valley Marketing. I took some notes, I think we'll give him some more clarification. Any more on that agenda item? Ooh, sorry, it's 10 after 6. So, sideboard layouts. Can we, do we have time to discuss that in another meeting?
Well, Rich brought this again. You want to just mention this and show us this again briefly, so we understand what it was?
Rich, yeah, Chief.
Well, that was the one from 2015.
Here, I'll do this. 'Cause I know what it looks like.
Right. So, I mean, it basically had the layout, what the new building would look like, and some costs. So. Now, I don't know if that Gmail account is still good, or any of that, or a phone number.
Well-
I think that's your phone number, isn't it?
I can't see it from here.
527-2708?
It's more the layout, right? It's more the layout, because obviously a lot of those photos are old, like you said, right?
Right, those
And
photos
those are-
match those.
Yes,
Right.
and those
Right.
are, that's not the same.
But this is the kind of a board that we
Right.
were talking about
Yes.
with John, right?
Right.
We have
Yes.
a couple boards like this.
And John made the point that there were too many photos here, that you had to get right up onto it to
Right.
discern what they are. I think I agree with that.
Yeah.
Is there a position open
And
for that?
as far as deferring to another meeting,
Do I got a chance?
No.
All right, you're all set, Charlie, thanks. Go ahead.
our next Monday's meeting is with HKT, and they are expecting some kind of input from us about what we want on the signboards, because they were going to pursue that. So we need to at least, I think, just decide whether we're going to try to do it independently of them, or if not, we need to be able to offer them some guidance next week.
One thing that concerns me a little bit, they are so detailed and so capable of giving good architectural design and all the fuel aspect of it, the HVAC piece and all that. I'm a little worried that the forum will get carried away with that level of detail, which we may never use them for the architect. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say, that we've seen so many PowerPoint presentations from HKT that are really interesting and really good, but I think it overrides what we need in the first step. The first step is to get the land and then to get the vote to support even a new building, and not worry about the facade and those kinds of things.
But I think our points are different, though. I think HKT has offered to do the signboards. Is that right? I thought that was part of task 3.
Set of minutes that we had. They were going to help us with a communication strategy.
Yeah,
I thought that was the point of sending us the brochures and the signboards that they've already
It
done.
was not the last meeting, it was the meeting before, the
I thought they said
last meeting in
notice.
February, Chris.
I had gone back and tried to listen to a couple meetings and I couldn't find it.
I know, they haven't all been posted actually on e-media.
So I guess the question is do we
Yes,
want to take
they're all
control
there.
of the signboards, do we want to give it to
On our
HKT?
town website, they're all there.
The question is, do we want to take control of the signboards, or do we give it to HKT? Or at least, now, is that HKT funding it?
Well, I thought that was
Is
part
that
of their
part of our budget?
task.
That's what we
Isn't
were-
that part of the task 3?
Isn't that something we discovered at the last meeting we had with HKT? That it was a task that
They brought it up.
they brought it up and we
Yes.
kind of had overlooked it because we were waiting.
Okay.
We'd agreed to part of that task, but we never finished looking at that entire task, I think.
All right, so if that's the case, how many signboards do we want, and what topics do we want on each signboard? Right, do we want one to be specifically to the land acquisition, one to be about the deficiencies of the current buildings, and then one to be something else? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, having 3, it's not bad. Doing the land, definitely. Taking and doing the requirement to have the funding to take and do the engineering designs, another one. And then I would do a third one, is projected concepts of what this would look like.
That's well stated, I think, concepts.
And then obviously we'd want one on the conditions of the current buildings.
Well, then that's number 4, but yes,
I mean, I think that would be
yeah.
a priority,
Yeah.
right?
So if we add 4 like that, and we
Well,
don't,
I didn't get your second one.
Yeah, I didn't either.
It was land acquisition?
an engineering design cost, we need to explain why we need $3 million to take and have the engineering work done.
You think on a signboard, we need a designated signboard for that?
I think so, because it's $3 million. I just think that if we explain that we need this because we're at point A, buying the land, but point B is we need this money so we can get to point C and D. And I also look at this as, this is all draft conversation at this point. So if it's out there and we find out that I'm in error and this should change, that's fine too, no harm, no foul. But if we don't do it, after the fact, we're not gonna have it. And I think the $3 million, my reading of the town, just because I'm in town talking to everybody all the time doing work, I'm not hearing much about buying the land. That doesn't seem to be the issue. The issue is when you start asking $3 million, because that's going to start actually reflecting on some taxes.
Okay, so in summary, what we have is a board for land acquisition, a board for engineering and design costs, a board for conditions of the current buildings, and then a board for project concepts.
Well, and right there, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but all of a sudden, we're at 5 million right there. If we go for 2 million something for the acquisition, if we go for the big parcel and engineering, we're asking the town for 5 million already. I mean, 5, hello.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, yeah.
You're right, round numbers, but you're right.
Is that, I guess I wasn't, I'd forgotten about the other costs, but did Ed put those in, did those go in on the capital request?
Yes.
Yes.
They did.
In 2 separate.
Yeah, we did
Submissions.
that at the beginning, Chris, but
Yeah,
everyone keeps forgetting that $3 million, but that
Yeah.
$3 million is a driver.
yeah.
Is that coming up this year?
Monies?
Not right now.
There isn't, because of our net income at this town is too high for federal funding. You make too much money, Barry. I mean, it's just the way it is. Because of that, you drag the rest of us down.
Right now, our median household income, based on
Yeah, I wish.
2022 Census Bureau, is 114,000. That's our median household income.
Yeah.
I don't want to digress because we're getting late on
Yeah.
time here.
Yeah.
So let's, at least we can bring this up to HKT. Is everyone okay with at least those 4 ideas brought up to HKT?
And, well, do you mean we're directing them? Are we having them do the signboards? Might as well. if
Or
they're-
at least have discussion with them. At least now we have a direction to go with,
Yeah.
I
right?
think they should do
Okay.
it. Yeah.
All right. Let's see here.
Boy, you're-
Video update, I'll give you a quick video update. Video update is, they took the video. He's compiling it now. He threw me out a little teaser. Again, I'm not the greatest actor, but he's all right.
It will be by the end of it.
And he's coming, Jackson's coming tomorrow to do just some extra videoing of the police department. I don't know if he's coming to you or not, but he made arrangements.
He
coming
did
down.
quite a bit the other day.
All right, so he must have to
He hasn't
finish up this at the
contacted me, no.
So we should have that pretty soon. He is working on it. By the day after he came, he sent me a teaser of some video, so it looks good.
I went up Friday afternoon. We got it in the second take. And he seemed happy. I'm probably gonna hate it, but
You know what? I usually, whenever I'm on film, I never watch it because you're always your worst critic.
Yeah.
But I have to for this, you know? So it's like,
I
oh.
know.
And so we kept Denise in the video?
Denise, yes.
Yeah.
But she doesn't really say anything?
Oh, no, she does.
She does,
Denise is basically my interviewer throughout the building.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Chief Facilities as well.
And Barry did the voiceover. I pulled myself away from it. He's
Then he also came back and filmed 3 people coming into the station, getting their gear on and getting the truck out the door. So,
Okay, let's go to public forum. Any discussion on that we want to follow up on?
Well,
There's a lot of planning to do for it.
There
we know the
is.
school is ready.
The school,
Night, right?
we got the night, we got the time, and we got the cafeteria for that.
And again, we have to finalize some things with HKT, with Janet and Amy, because this is the last time we'll meet with them before the forum. Is that correct?
I think we need to see what they're gonna present before.
Yes.
I mean, I'm scared of how long this presentation could be and how detailed it could be. I think it could be way too much information.
Well, I think we need to give them a time frame, because
Yeah.
when they interviewed, it was very concise, it was articulate.
So, I
The
mean, if
Zoom
they had a
meetings,
15-minute presentation or whatever, and then
I think
Q&A,
yeah.
something like that, I would think.
I wonder if we should have a facilitator to make things move.
they'll stick to a time
You
frame,
think
but I
so?
think we need to emphasize that they need to. And in the forum, there needs to be a facilitator, but they need to know very clearly that, I think 15 minutes is reasonable. Do you?
Cindy, I can't figure out which meeting that was, sorry.
I'll have to look, Chris.
15 minutes, you think that's good for HKT as a presentation? That's what you're...
I wouldn't go over,
Yeah.
I wouldn't go over a half an hour.
Yeah, why don't we ask how much time they'll
Yeah,
need?
maybe 20 minutes at the most for a presentation. But if you go back, I forgot, we looked up last time how long the senior center one was, I forget what I found. I can pull that back out again.
Well, we can ask them this.
Um,
Okay. Do you want me to ask them individually, send them an email, or do you want to find this out next meeting when we talk to them?
I wonder, should we find it before?
I can always, I'll email them. That
Better
can't
to
hurt.
get 'em up front.
Yeah, all right, I'll email them.
Do you think you would contemplate putting in the signboard information too, so they have something to
Sure.
work with this week?
I will, yeah.
I think emailing them makes sense, otherwise it'll be a 15-minute discussion.
All right.
Yeah.
We don't have that kind of time in our meetings.
Okay.
But if the public forum is the 10th, right, of April, so
Okay. Anything more on the public forum?
If you're going to have a facilitator, who's that going to be?
Yeah, we need a facilitator.
I think we should have somebody that's directing it.
And also, yeah, exactly, not them, somebody that can then say, now we're going to do questions, please line up behind the mic, and those kinds of things. And there will be a mic there, right, for people to ask questions?
Oh, I would imagine so, sure. It's a public
we're
forum.
gonna
Right.
get East Hampton Media on board,
Yeah.
for come and take that.
Is that something that, who would organize that?
Scott would need to reach out
Okay.
to Jeff and Jeff
All right.
to actually film it live.
Anybody want to be considered a facilitator so they can?
I think Cindy recommended you.
Sure she did.
Isn't that amazing?
Well,
how that works?
it only makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
It
about
needs,
the town administrator, or town
Moderator?
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 Oh, no.
I don't know.
well, who did it for senior center?
The reason
It
I
was the
recommended
chairs, right?
the chief was, yes, he is a terrific public speaker, but more than that, he's the co-chair, and he is one, and maybe you can co-moderate, you two both as chiefs. Work it out, seriously, because you.
Yeah, we're
Listen, you say it so, yeah, you say it so,
Well, I guess.
so easy.
That's why I said town moderator.
And I'm going to be away, so. I don't know if.
I think if we do, I mean, it is coming up, so whatever we decide, we need to plan for this, so.
Who else would be good? Chris?
I think we need a specific designated forum meeting so that we
Okay.
can plan.
Actually outline what's going to happen.
Yeah,
Right,
and
okay.
because we're very scattered right now.
That's right. I agree.
One of our select board members seems to always be very concise when he speaks, and that's John Lumbra. I don't know if he'd be a good facilitator, or if he's available. Or maybe that's a bad idea, but.
Well, maybe we can, so what if we were to bring this up in a specific meeting?
He's a former policeman too, isn't he?
What do we have for meetings before then?
Well, we have HKT on the 26th, and we have the joint meeting, I mean, on the 25th, and we have the joint meeting with Select Board on the 26th. Those are scheduled. So,
Weren't we gonna have a meeting like a couple days before the forum
yeah, but we
anyway?
need to plan for the forum a couple days
Right.
before the forum. More than a couple days before the forum.
Let's think
What-
about who could facilitate, maybe having, I mean, rather than, do we need to decide that tonight or not?
Somebody's got to be asked. And if the person is asked and says no, we have to go to plan B or C.
Well, was there a facilitator as such at a senior center? or
Well, I
was it
wasn't
just-
present, but I do think the person that did their feasibility study, and I forgot the man's name.
He was an excellent speaker.
He was an excellent speaker
Yeah.
and a good facilitator, and not to say,
Yeah.
I don't know, so these engineers are wonderful, and Amy seems to be able to facilitate well. I don't know if we could ask specifically for Amy? or-
I think because she's a presenter, maybe
You
not
do?
have her
Yeah.
as the facilitator.
Okay, you're right.
I mean, I think, Janet was the one that did the intro to the abacus guy standing up and doing his presentation.
Yeah.
I have to go back and look at the video again, whether she then said, okay, we're open for questions now, or the questions just
Yeah.
started coming.
There were certain questions that directed towards the engineering firm, and then there were other questions that somebody else would have to answer.
Right.
Right.
And that's kind of how it was with the bike path one. too,
And that's how it was with that fire.
Yeah, exactly. So some went in one direction or another, but even the bike path one, a lot went toward Ty and Ron, and then others went to the Greenway Committee. So-
If you can't get anybody, I'll do it, but if you think of somebody better,
Did.
okay.
I think it's hard bringing in somebody like a John who's new to the whole process.
Yeah, I think it should be a
I-
committee member
I would
who
not be in favor
is,
of that.
who's introducing or welcoming the residents, because it's us that are hosting.
Do you want to do it, Christine?
Well, I think it should be from amongst us. No, not necessarily, but it's not that hard to say, welcome, we're glad to have you here, state the reason, Mark, you're on.
Why don't you do it? Why don't you do it jointly?
Before we break, I did find the communication thing, just to clarify. So in their proposal, for purposes of developing the fee proposal, we've assumed 60 man-hours for developing site and floor plan renderings, a 3D model of the conceptual design, presentation poster boards for displaying in prominent locations within the town, for example, at Town Hall, Library, Transfer Station, and developing a project brochure or mailer for distribution to a brochure or mailer. Printing and mailing of a brochure to residents is not included. So they were willing to help design a
We should
brochure,
give
but
them a
not.
draft on this too.
It sounds like one poster board, a copy of, 3 copies of one.
Well, presentation poster boards, yeah. I mean, I don't know that, yeah, we could define that like we just did a little bit
All
more.
right. So do we want to, obviously, you said, I agree, Christina, we need to have a little bit greater discussion on this, on the public forum and the outline. The question is when are we going to do that?
Right. That is a question.
Start earlier again next Monday?
We are already.
Start at noon? No, that's a bad idea.
It needs to be a full meeting. We've got a lot to plan for this, if it's going to be a professionally presented.
It would have to be the week of the first, right?
No, they need the room for a meeting.
Oh,
Okay,
all right.
Oh, we were going to wrap up, I think, in a couple minutes.
yeah, I think we should.
Give us 2 minutes? 3 minutes? All right.
So first Monday in April?
For the forum?
I think that Chief Fasoli was saying
I-
that is it.
Right.
Yeah.
There'll be a separate meeting for us, is that what you're saying?
Well, we need, yeah.
April Fool's Day. Just saying.
Is that 4:30 PM?
Eastern one.
I'll be available.
I don't see any other option, right?
So that's April 1st.
We take minutes.
April 1st is the Monday.
Is 4:30 or 4?
That'd be good.
Would everybody else be able to make it for 4 or no? Any, can everybody here make it for 4? If we can make it for 4, let's start earlier, and then maybe get out of here at a reasonable hour. Okay, so 4 o'clock,
For which?
April 1st, 4 o'clock?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We haven't quite gotten.
Task 7 update,
Nope.
any updates on that?
I've got copies of the whole thing. I don't think we have time.
Why don't we,
Defer.
we'll defer the task 7 update. And then any other business, I just want to let you know that Scott provided us with a question, Scott, I already misplaced it somewhere in the packet here. With a general checklist for municipal land acquisition, which I think is important for us to have. Thank you for this, because I needed this specifically. I had like I said, so much of this is outside my wheelhouse, and this will help me understand, and I think that the committee needs to start using this so we can kind of ensure that we're on the right track here.
Just a quick announcement, so the owner of the property is going before the planning board on Wednesday for the A&R, and we hope to have the survey by Wednesday as well.
Oh, okay, all right, great.
And we've had a couple questions being asked by the appraiser about the zone classification of properties, so I was hoping Mark Darn would be here tonight, but if not, we will catch up somehow with somebody from planning board to just clarify, because the commercial zone seems to be a mixed, split zone
Okay,
designation, so they want to be sure so they can appraise it correctly.
gotcha.
So we're gonna, and then lastly, the quiz, I think it may be just flop. We had 45 people, so it's not, I'm not sure it's worth continuing this, but.
I think you should. If you get 45 people, it's better than none.
And it's getting it out there.
And it's getting it out there, and I think it's a great idea, Chris. I mean, it's probably hard work, a lot of work on your part. Okay.
Oh, I'm standing up.
Yeah.
Any other business that can't wait till next meeting?
We're going home.
None? Confirm March 25th and 26th meetings. Everybody is aware of those?
Yep.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
times are they? Just so
They're on the back of the minutes,
All
right
right.
there. See, right there, right middle of the page.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay?
And a motion to adjourn? Anybody? Make that motion?
Cindy, seconds?
I moved.
All right, you moved. All right. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.